When the debt collector called my phone for the third time that week, I thought I was dreaming. I couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, and all I could hear was the echo of my own name, being used like a lie I had never told. It was a Tuesday morning, the kind of morning where sunlight creeps lazily through the blinds and the smell of coffee still hangs in the kitchen air, comforting, familiar. I remember gripping the counter so tightly that my knuckles whitened, staring at the phone in disbelief. My best friend, the one I'd trusted more than anyone, had somehow rented an apartment under my name. And somehow, I was now responsible for a debt I didn't even know existed. I sank into the chair by the table, my hands trembling as the ringtone cut through the quiet apartment. Each call felt like a hammer striking against my chest. I couldn't understand how it had happened. How someone I laughed with, cried with, shared every secret with, could do this. My stomach churned, my chest felt heavy, and the faint aroma of my morning toast couldn't soothe the shock. Before that morning, my life was ordinary. I worked at a small publishing firm, my desk tucked in a corner with a stack of novels and half-empty coffee mugs. I lived alone, the apartment quiet except for the occasional creak of the radiator in winter, or the soft hum of the fridge in the kitchen. Weekends were often spent in the park with my best friend, Lila. She was someone I had known since college, a whirlwind of energy, laughter that filled every corner of a room, and an uncanny ability to make ordinary days feel extraordinary. Lila and I were inseparable, or so I thought. We shared dinners at each other's apartments, gossiped about work, and even celebrated the smallest victories. A promotion, a successful presentation, a new haircut that finally looked right. She knew my family, I knew hers. I had been there when her father fell ill. She had been there when my mother had her knee surgery. Our friendship was the kind of bond that felt permanent, unshakable. I remember one Saturday afternoon just a month ago. We had been in my kitchen, laughing over burnt toast and cheap coffee, when she casually mentioned she was looking for a new place closer to work. I'd nodded, offered to help her search online, never imagining that our easy camaraderie could hide something so dark. Back then life was simple. Bills were just bills, the occasional disagreement between friends was just that, and everything felt manageable. I had a routine I liked. Work, home, short walks in the evening, Lila's infectious stories filling my apartment like a warm blanket. The apartment smelled of vanilla candles that I liked to light on weekends, and sometimes of the lemon-scented cleaner I used obsessively to feel some control over my small corner of the world. Life was steady, predictable, and comforting. The first clue was subtle, almost laughable in hindsight. A letter arrived, addressed to me, from a property management company I had never heard of. I remember the exact way I held it in my hands, the crisp texture of the paper against my fingers, my heart settling into a rhythm of mild curiosity. Probably some mail forwarding error. I muttered to myself. I put it aside. Then a few days later, a second letter arrived. The envelope was thicker this time, with the official feel of urgency. My stomach tightened as I opened it, the words blurring for a moment. Outstanding balance on lease payment overdue, immediate action required. I laughed nervously at first, thinking it must be a mistake. I don't owe anyone a lease. I live alone, my apartment paid in full. But deep down, a tiny seed of doubt took root. I tried to push it away, convincing myself it was a clerical error. It wasn't until the phone calls started that the panic set in. The first one was from a man whose voice was harsh, clipped. Is this my name? You have an outstanding lease balance. At address I didn't recognize. I froze, my fingers clutching the receiver like a lifeline. I think you have the wrong person, I stammered. There was a pause, then a sigh. Ma'am, this is a serious matter. Your payments are overdue. We need to resolve this immediately. I hung up, my hands shaking, my mind spinning. Who could have done this? I didn't know anyone living in that apartment. And then the thought hit me, one person. One person I should have trusted more than anyone. Lila. It seemed impossible. But little cracks in memory began to surface. The way she'd been evasive when I casually asked about her apartment hunt. The vague excuses for why she couldn't meet certain weekends. The little flinch whenever I mentioned addresses near the area she wanted to move to. I had ignored them, of course. Trust blinds you, sometimes painfully so. I remember pacing the apartment that night, the hardwood floor cool under my bare feet, the hum of the fridge louder than usual, thinking over every interaction, every casual conversation. Each small moment, previously harmless, now felt like a piece of a puzzle I never wanted to assemble. I remember the day I finally felt the weight lift, just a little, not completely, because some betrayals leave marks that never fully fade. After weeks of phone calls, emails, and meetings with lawyers, the lease under my name was corrected. The debt, which had hovered over me like a storm cloud, was officially cleared. Lila faced the consequences, not just legally, but socially. Friends I had once introduced her to, neighbors who had trusted her, even colleagues she had charmed, many pulled away, leaving her to reckon with the loneliness her decisions had created. And me? I walked out of that apartment one quiet evening, the air crisp and scented with early spring blooms. I carried nothing with me but my own sense of hard-earned clarity. I realized that life doesn't always offer poetic justice. Sometimes, it just gives you the choice of how to carry your own heart forward. Rebuilding my trust in people wasn't easy. I had to relearn boundaries, the way a person might learn to walk after an injury. Every time my phone rang, I flinched. Every unexpected message made me hesitate. But slowly, with small acts of courage, saying no when I meant it, setting limits with new friends, trusting my instincts, I began to feel whole again. It wasn't about revenge, or seeing Lila fall apart, or proving I was right. It was about reclaiming my own life. I poured energy into my work, took long walks in the park I had once visited with her, and allowed myself to notice the small joys I had overlooked. The smell of rain on concrete, the warmth of sunlight spilling onto my balcony, the quiet satisfaction of finishing a book in one sitting. One afternoon, I found myself making coffee in the same kitchen where, just months before, I had laughed with her over burnt toast. The aroma hit me, and I realized I could breathe again without that tight knot in my chest. I wasn't bitter, not completely. I was simply wiser, more cautious, and most importantly, more myself. I also learned the power of forgiveness, not necessarily for her, but for me. Forgiveness doesn't mean letting someone off the hook. It means freeing yourself from the chains of anger that hold you back. I forgave myself for trusting too easily, for not seeing the signs, for letting my heart be open to someone who wasn't ready to handle it responsibly. And in that forgiveness, I found peace. Life didn't magically return to what it was before Lila's betrayal, but it became something better, more aware, more grounded, more intentional. I discovered the strength I hadn't known I possessed, the resilience that comes from facing a storm, and choosing to stand in the sunlight afterward. Sometimes I still think about her. I wonder what made her risk so much, what led her to cross that line. But those thoughts no longer carry anger, just curiosity and a quiet acceptance that not everyone will honor the trust you place in them. And that's okay. Life has a way of balancing itself, even if the scales aren't immediate or obvious. Now, when friends ask me how I survived the ordeal, I simply smile and say, you survive by remembering who you are, by holding on to your integrity, and by refusing to let someone else's mistakes define your story. And that's exactly what I did. I reclaimed my life, rebuilt my trust carefully, and allowed myself to dream again. I know now that betrayal doesn't have to break you. It can teach you, shape you, and ultimately, lead you to a stronger version of yourself. So, I ask you, my dear listener, what would you do if someone you trusted with your whole heart turned your life upside down? How would you find the strength to forgive? Not them, but yourself, and move forward. If you've ever faced betrayal, or if this story resonates with something in your own life, I'd love for you to share your thoughts in the comments. Let's remind each other that even in the darkest moments, healing is possible, and life continues, stronger, wiser, and brighter than before. Because, in the end, it's not about the friends who hurt you, or the debts you didn't owe. It's about the life you choose to live, the peace you fight to reclaim, and the courage to open your heart again when the storm has passed.